Steam may have thousands of games available, but how many of them are actually good? My name is Graeldon, and this is Steam Sequence, a series where I complete Steam games in alphabetical order to hopefully uncover some hidden gems. And today, we're looking at #Funtime. From the very first moments of the trailer, the game makes its stance clear. It's loud, it's vibrant, it's colourful, and it's frantic. The neon colours, particle effects, and overall simplicity of the visuals are definitely similar to Geometry Wars on the Xbox 360, so if you enjoyed that game, the odds are pretty high that you'll enjoy this one too. At its core, it's a twin-stick shooter, and #Funtime does have full controller support, so I'll be taking advantage of that by playing with a PS4 controller. It's on the pricier side of games I've reviewed so far, coming in at $17.49, but it looks like it's often on sale at a hefty discount, so keep that in mind. For the price though, I'm hoping for at least 4 to 8 hours of content, so let's see how it goes. Despite the somewhat cringy name, #Funtime delivers when it comes to the gameplay department. There are two main game modes available, Challenge Mode and Arcade Mode. Challenge Mode is a series of 54 stages with varying levels of difficulty, mechanics, and goals, and also features some unique boss fight stages. As you progress through the challenges, more and more mechanics are introduced and your ship receives upgrades as you reach the higher difficulty levels. On the other hand, Arcade Mode is split into various types of survival and wave-based modes that allow you to purchase upgrades for your ship. The upgrades available are the same as those earned through Challenge Mode, but little to no explanation is given here, so I definitely recommend completing the Challenge Mode first. Speaking of upgrades and mechanics, it's time to discuss the two main unique mechanics that #Funtime has on offer, colour changing and the Wrecking Ball. Starting with colour changing. To probably no one's surprise, this allows you to change the colour of your ship. Why? Well, your ship's colour is able to influence multiple things, such as giving you immunity to lasers of the same colour, creating a trail of coloured tiles in your wake that explode enemies of the same colour, and forming laser beams from certain enemy types. But most importantly, it changes how your helper ship behaves when firing. When green, it fires in the same direction as you, which is great for focusing fire on tough enemies. When blue, it fires in a cross shape, and the shots will bounce off a surface once before disappearing, which is great for large groups in tight spaces. When yellow, it fires 4 shots in diagonals from your current direction, which is useful when you're trying to focus on one enemy but deal with additional smaller ones at the same time. And lastly, when red, it fires in random directions at an increased rate, great for those moments of chaos, which are happening more often than not. Each colour is mapped to a different face button on the controller. For example, on an Xbox controller, A is green, B is red, X is blue, and Y is yellow, making the colour switching pretty intuitive. Sadly, this was also where I found my first real bug. Despite the in-game menu having the ability to change the controller type, it always reverted back to an Xbox controller instead of a PS4 controller. This meant that the colours didn't match properly, so it took me a bit longer than it likely should have to get used to the controls, but I got there eventually. It's an annoyance, but not a deal breaker. The colour changing mechanic is used in some pretty creative ways, and using it properly requires you to be focused at all times. But at the same time, I never felt like the mechanic was used to its full potential. In the more frantic levels, the colour changing often felt more like an afterthought than a tactical decision, and I think it comes down to the fact that there aren't any enemies that are only vulnerable when you are a certain colour. Sure, there is one enemy that can only be destroyed by the same coloured tiles, but that's the only one. There aren't any enemies that need to be shot by specific coloured bullets, which feels like a missed opportunity. A mechanic that isn't a missed opportunity though is the Wrecking Ball. Attached by a chain to your ship, you're able to swing it in circles to destroy anything that it comes into contact with. If an enemy is hit by the chain, it's simply destroyed, but if it's hit by the actual ball, it will increase your score multiplier. This leads to some really satisfying score building in the later stages, but it comes with a drawback. Because it's so overpowered, it's only used in select levels and arcade modes. It's not a temporary pickup. The stage either has it, or it doesn't. This makes sense to a degree, as it means those stages and hence score targets are created with the mechanic in mind. The downside to this crazy weapon is that it's also coloured. If your ship's colour doesn't match the ball's colour, you could get destroyed by your own wrecking ball. Thankfully, the audio-visual feedback provided makes it very clear when it's about to change colour and what colour it will change to. More on the audio-visual stuff shortly. The last mechanics are pretty standard fare for this genre: boosts and bombs. Boosts are a short dash that provide a burst of speed and a window of invulnerability, allowing you to evade or even destroy weaker enemies that you pass through. At the maximum upgrade level, 3 boosts can be chained together, and the recharge time is very quick, making this an essential mechanic to master in order to survive the later levels. The bomb does as you would expect. It destroys all enemies currently on screen. Because it's so powerful, you're limited to a maximum of 3 per level, so it's necessary to use them wisely. And lastly, the game encourages movement in quite a clever way. If you stay in one area for too long, a meteor will fall on your current position, which forces you to keep moving at all times. Right, that's the mechanics covered. Let's talk about the audio-visual feedback, because let's face it, if a game like this doesn't get it right, it can feel super unsatisfying to play. And thankfully, #Funtime doesn't disappoint. The soundtrack is an absolute banger, but what is impressive is how the music is affected by the gameplay. When you take damage, the game gives you a few seconds of slow-mo to help avoid any further damage, and at the same time the music slows and distorts in a super satisfying way. The pops of each enemy exploding can build together to sound like small fireworks, and it's accompanied by a small screen shake that is especially noticeable when using the wrecking ball, and it grows more and more pronounced at higher combo levels. And speaking of, having the pitch of the combo multiplier power-up increase as the multiplier increases is a genius move. It makes the higher combo levels much more satisfying to reach, and it makes losing the multiplier that much more painful. Like with the colour changing mechanic though, the sound design does fall short in one big way. That is quite a shame and would have been relatively easy to fix. The music tracks don't loop. This usually isn't an issue as the rounds are so short, but on some of the later levels, the music will simply stop for a few seconds until the next track starts. It's a bit odd, but again, it's not a deal breaker. What I think is truly impressive though is that even in the later stages when the game was throwing literally everything at me, including 2 bosses at once, I was always able to keep track of where I was on screen, and most of the mistakes felt like they were my fault and could have been prevented if I was simply better at the game. And I think that's super important for a game like this. Getting the balance of the challenge right really matters. #Funtime thankfully feels more like a #Fairtime. So, after about 9 hours of gameplay, I managed to beat all the challenge mode levels and fully upgraded my ship in the arcade mode. Twin stick shooters are not my favourite genre, but I really enjoyed my time here. As a complete package, it's somewhat flawed, but it delivers on the core premise well enough that I'm surprised that it hasn't been more popular. According to SteamDB, #Funtime peaked at an incredible 4 players. So if this game looks interesting to you, I'd recommend picking it up while it's on sale. At that price, it's a bargain and a great way to indulge in the joy of excessive neon-coloured destruction set to excellent electronic music. And while it might be cheesy, this means that my rating for the game is, I'm here for a #Funtime, not a #Longtime, out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying these videos, why not help out by liking the video? And while you're there, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of this weird gaming journey. If you've already done both, then hey, thank you. And until next time, take care.